This is a production of Cornell University.
Alright guys, so you're here at the first ever Botanical fashion show for Marcia's Art of Horticulture class. 3 students have made designs to show to you all today. Sheila Gordon, Jasmine LaCoursiere, and Eva Johnson. Right now I have my grass skirt on. I'm Lulu Rios, and this part of this skirt is designed with Penicillium foxtail. So it's an annual form of this grass, and then I've alternated the colors. I think these are the less ripe ones, and these are the more ripe ones, and so that gives a design. And then the background of this skirt is detailed with prosomia, and this belt is also got the leaves of this grass, and then on the back I have leaves and ornaments. And so this is my monographs. Alright, and we're ready for the dress to start. Below comes a cascade of ivory tulle and Ceropolis heterolypis, creating a whimsical look perfect for a wedding garden. If you look closely, you might notice a hint of blue, which is noticeable on the top. Such a dress must have something blue. Finding a dress with seams and bonding in place that can support the weight and layer sewn onto the dress base was a challenge. Jasmine recalled a blue polka dot dress last worn in high school, perfect to work from. Once the bodice was feathered with leaves and moss sewn in, Jasmine carefully positioned the double layer of tulle wrapped around the waist covered the skirt. It was time to determine how best to attach the whimsical layers of grass. Jasmine weaved and tied with the use of wire. Finally, the tulle was cut into strips and fed through openings. The shoes and headpiece, which complement the dress, for a total look. If you look closely at the back of the headpiece, you can notice the dream catcher. Yeah. The dream catcher is made of Laguris ovitus, which is gold thread, amobia, and white feathers. And that's Jasmine. Have worked under forced labor for wealthy families. The tobacco plant, Nicotiana tabacum, which comprises the majority of the outfit. The banana plant, Busso epinym, the cotton, Jasippium peristrudum, and the coffee plant, Sophia arabica, were intended to seem as though they were containing the laborer. It is almost as if the plants themselves were constructing the worker. So dependent are the laborers on these crops for a day's wage that unfair labor practices within the workplace can remain unchallenged for some time. The bag is covered with arbor vitae leaves and attenuated with hemlock cones and plant fiber. And now we're going to have our guest, Eva Bassuk. She's in the horticulture department, and she works with men's garden, which is where I got all my flowers from. So, from a horticulture perspective, we'll have Nina.
Well, I'm very really enjoyed the fact that you use grasses, which might seem to be fragile, but are quite tough.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's quite a new thing. And I like the whole composition. Is that oak leaves I hear?
Yeah, they're white. They're bleached oak leaves.
Bleached oak leaves. Wow. That's so you took oak leaves and
I didn't bleach them myself. I ordered them.
you ordered them. Okay. And then there's flowers. You order those as well? Because I don't
These?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I don't think we had any.
No.
Yeah. But the grasses were from.
Yeah, they're the ones I cut.
From his garden.
Yeah.
Like your crown, it's very whimsical. I think
Thank
your
you.
shoes are quite a complete package.
My name is Charlotte.
And we have Charlotte from the textile department, so clothing care.
Well, I like the composition very much. As Nina said, it's a complete look. So you have the headwear, you have the dress, you have the footwear, so it all goes together nicely. And I think the wedding theme, it has a fresh look. It has almost a hint of innocence and hope for the future, so it's really a perfect combination. And then your colors, you have a hint of green in your headdress, and then the green sort of gradation of greens is really nice. I like the mix of textures. The oak leaves are really terrific for bringing out the texture. And then that next to the green at your waist is really terrific. So it's a really fun outfit.
Yeah.
And you're just going to have to take this to greater heights. We should have had the TV folks here. Right? We have video over there, right? Maybe we can send it off. It's very nicely done.
Thank you. And I was wondering if anyone in the class had any questions?
The oak leaves at the top, you turn them, they're vertically placed?
Yeah, they're upright, and I sewed around the main vein. And yeah, so I just did like 3 little sewing sutures, I guess, down the vein.
And the leaves are already curved, already.
Yeah, because they're dried, they naturally kind of curled up a little bit.
Yeah. Which material do you find it most difficult to work with?
The grass, for sure, because I originally wanted to just glue the grass onto the dress, but this grass is a lot bigger than the one that I planned or wanted to use. So what I ended up having to do was sew it onto an individual piece of wire, and then wrap bunches of them, and then sew it onto the dress. So it was a lot more work than just hot gluing it on. So this was harder, definitely.
What made you do the dream catcher with the bag?
I have so much leftover material from what I ordered, and last night I wanted to make one because one of my best friends made one from my leftover material, and so I looked up how to do it, and I decided that it looked great with the dress and followed the same theme, so I added it in the back for a little
Were the grasses already curled like that, or?
No, they were straight. They're one of the straight bushes of grass out there. And I actually got injured 2 weeks ago and couldn't walk, and so I needed space in my room, so I couldn't correctly dry them flat on the floor. So they ended up drying in a bucket and kind of got the curly look, which I ended up liking. Yeah. So yeah.
Do we have any more questions?
Could you turn around again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a zipper.
Okay.
How long did the whole thing take you? It took me the entire fall break, and then at least 2 to 3 hours a day since then. So, yeah.
Is this permanent? I mean, once you take it off, are things going to start falling off? Or?
It's pretty permanent. I put it on 3 different times, and I think this is what's going to end up staying. And yeah, everything's pretty much preserved. So, yeah, I think it'll stay for a while.
Well, one final round for Jasmine.
I just thought it was so interesting that you chose to do a costume from workers who were being exploited.
I honestly don't remember why I thought to do that. I think I was walking by the banana plant in near the Welcome Center, and was like, wow, those leaves are really big and that'd be really cool to work with, but next time I make a dress out of plants, I will make it out of leaves, though.
So did your idea for becoming an exploited worker from South America, Central America, how did that come to you?
Actually, it was interesting working with the materials because these tobacco leaves came from some family friends in like Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And so I used to live in the Dominican Republic, and I just was talking to my friend one day, and she was like, "Oh, what are you up to?" And I was like, "Oh, I have this really cool horticulture project." She's like, "You know, like we still have an old plantation if you need us to ship you up any." And so I was like, "That'd be great. Like, are they gonna be dry by the time they get here?" And she's like, "No, they stay like pretty pliable for a couple weeks." So I was like, "Awesome, send them up." And they were very pliable, and I was just telling them that I was trying this on this morning, like making sure I could like bend my arms and things like that, and things were good. And then I brought it out into the windstorm this morning. So
you have cotton and tobacco and...
There are coffee beans on the head wrap, yeah. And the banana leaves are what makes the wrap. So actually the head wrap is the bandana that we made in class. You know, like underneath. So it has natural plant extract. Nothing unusual, because I know those are
really a very unusual theme and execution. Thank you very much.
Any words?
I find it interesting too that you're looking at cultural and social and political emphasis with your costume, and in fact, Clothing Through the Ages has done that a bit. You know, in the days when women wanted to present themselves as stronger figures, and they put shoulder pads in their suits, and I'm sure you all have heard that before, but you know, in order to make a statement that women were strong and they could handle these jobs like men and so forth. And so I think it's interesting that you're sort of carrying on that tradition.
I'm definitely not an artist, so I started with research, and I kind of wanted to just go with something that I could learn. So it was fun to me.
You've also done a really good job of creating the look of 18th century costume.
Like it came out looking ragtag, you know, like I don't know. They like I said, the leaves stretched across the whole dress, and like everything was covered before, so it looked a little fresher. And now that it's dried, I mean, like you can see the cloth, but if I had put more on, like knowing that they were going to dry up in a day, then it would be interesting to see what it would look like, more ragged and things like that.
But I think the tobacco leaves actually have a certain luster to them. So it actually, if you're at a distance, it could look like satin or silk, or weighted silk, that is.
Interesting because the tobacco leaves that I received in the mail, like one side of them was a more golden mustardy color, and then the other side was a very deep, almost purpley brown. So I had a hard time deciding which one I wanted to use, but it ended up being that the leaves curl a certain way that was conducive to pinning them onto the dress and things like that. So most of them are the lighter tan color, but I really liked the dark one.
And I may be one of the few people in this room that's actually worked in the tobacco field, so I know a lot about those leaves. And I was interested in the banana leaves too. I'm sure you know that you can scrape those banana leaves and get actual fibers, which then you can
we were doing some of that.
Yeah, so that's really interesting too. Anyway, it's a very fascinating concept, and you did a great job with it.
And any questions from the class?
So people were curious about your source of the tobacco leaves. You said you ordered them?
Yes, I ordered them from, it's my father's friend who lives in Port-au-Prince, and a couple from my friend in Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic, but most of them are from the plantation like right outside of Port-au-Prince.
I also just have a comment. Even though I grew up in upstate New York, my grandfather grew tobacco and hung it in his attic to dry. And Eva had this stored in my office this morning, and it was, scent is so connected to memory. It was like entering my grandparents' house. It was really, really interesting.
Less fragrant now than it was when you received the
my room is completely stench with tobacco. And my RA came in the other day and was like, "Are you rolling cigars?" It sounded like he wanted to join, but I was like, "If you want to help me make a dress," he was like, "Sign out."
Where are the banana leaves from?
They're actually from here, from the plantations. Yeah. So a couple of them are from a compost bin, which someone who works in the greenhouse. I don't know if you know where the Arboretum is, near, do you guys know where the Arboretum is? Yeah, if you go like past the Welcome Center and things like that. There's a greenhouse that was about to compost a lot of banana leaves, and I had caught her at the exact right time because the next day she was going to be putting them in the compost bin, so she was like, please take them. So I got some from there, and then, yeah, that's where most of them are from. It was an excursion getting them up. Like, I had planned to like bike there, and I had like a backpack to stuff them all in, and then like I got a flat going by Funky. So it was like, all right, I have to meet her in 15 minutes from West Campus, so I'm gonna run. And I like ran really fast and showed up like dripping sweat. She's like, okay, and I was like, I just was really excited for the banana leaves. So yeah, good stories.
I do think that on the back of your dress you have to put a label though that mentions the flammability.
You said you had done a lot of research before you started designing the dress, and I was just wondering why you picked this specific time period.
I don't really know. I think the first thing that triggered it was the banana leaves outside of the Welcome Center, like I said, and I was on a run with one of my friends, and she is Colombian and was talking about coffee, or her grandparents like harvesting coffee beans or something like that. And then we started talking about how the store Banana Republic is not the first time that term has been used, and Banana Republic was really like started in like referring to like Guatemalan unfair trade practices and things like that with big business there. And so I think it was just a mixture of like her and I going by the banana plants, and then we walked by Banana Republic the next day at the mall, and I was like, oh, that'd be kind of weird to do a dress like that. So I think that's why I don't have a better answer. Is that it?
Well, thank you guys very much.
I think it's such a great idea to be the queen. I would just think we have to do this kind of wave. I mean, you did this. It's like sort of like almost not moving your wrist. You know, it's very big thing. So there was the bag, the hat. There was 5 things, right?
Yeah,
Yes, well now 6 actually, because of the dress also.
So it was the bag, the gloves, the hat, shoes,
and the necklace.
the necklace, right? Right. So I think that's so the leaves were mostly hemlock. Is that your remember?
On the dress and the handbag, yeah.
That must have been difficult to. You glued them on, or?
Yeah, I glued on everything.
A lot. I mean, there's pretty small leaves. It looks like it's totally covered. What the sleeves? What are?
They're beans.
So that was part of it as well.
Yeah.
Bean dress. So there must be something under there that you glued it onto, but.
It's the dress itself, and then I glued them onto the dress.
Right.
It was looking very different from this now. Everything's falling apart.
I love the maple leaves. That's a nice bit of color. Of course, the queen tends to be some kind of monochromatic. She's always like blue pastel or pink pastel. These are green, and it's very impressive.
I'm just wondering if we can call this Queen in her salad days. Looks green to me. So first of all, it's a tremendous amount of work, and you can see that, all those beans, and you even have beans in the necklace, right?
Yes.
Are those wired on, or how did you
I
put those
put them on, actually. The necklace itself came from the hat, so the hat came with some cords around it. So I initially wanted to do a malleable pine twig, but it wouldn't work over the hat. So I just took the cords off the hat and then just put the moss around it, glued it on, and then glued the beans onto it, and did some multicolored beans on the end.
It's quite impressive. Your hat, that's the moss, right?
Yeah.
So that actually looks like a lot of the other materials that we use every day, something like polar fleece even, that's made from the soda bottles. And then also a wool felt, so that you could take the wool fibers and by adding moisture and agitation and heat, then you get this felted fabric, and that's what your hat looks like. So you really achieve the look of a material that people are familiar with, but yeah, you're using something really creative and innovative. What is that feather thing in your hat?
It's dried white pine needles.
That's really creative.
I actually sewed it onto the hat. So I sewed it on and then I put the beans over it to hide it, right?
Just sew the needle.
Yeah, sew the needles onto
So
the
it's
hat.
really just like 5 needles, and just sew it at the base?
Well, I gather the needles in a bundle, then I put them onto the hat, and then I just, run the needle and thread through the hat a few times, tap them on there, and then I just make a pattern over it with the beads.
You use some really interesting structures too on your handbag. Is that twining or braiding that goes around the light color?
It's plant fiber. Plant fiber. We made some stuff in class, and I asked the professor for some leftovers that she had.
How's that raffia?
I just plaited them and put them around there, and got some hemlock cones and just made a pattern.
So you use, I like the contrast of the textures that you get by the different techniques. So the moss looks like a non-woven fabric, and then you've got what looks like twining or braiding around the purse. You've got the flat application that we might do when we're applicating anything on a garment. So you've really mixed the textures and the structures. So it's very, very creative and innovative.
And does the class have any questions?
How did you get the gloves on?
Well, I started with this one first, and then I just kind of inched my way on. It's weird because when I was doing it at home, I knew I got this one right, and then for some reason I thought I had this one right, and when I just put it on, I realized that this was not right. I just put it on anyway because I had to keep it
You took it in stride and covered it up just like a real professional politician.
Are you from the UK by any chance?
No, I'm from Jamaica, but Jamaica was once colonized by England, so I don't know, the idea just popped in my head to do that.
Are you familiar with the phrase pearly queen? It's like it's a charity thing, and men and women dress up in these clothes that are like covered with like pearls and beads and beads, and it's just sort of like that. It's like a UK tradition.
Well, I went online and actually looked up some pictures of Queen Elizabeth. So being colonized by England, I already know that she has a glove thing going and a necklace, blah. But I know that she wore a variety of hats. Sometimes they're really broad, sometimes they're like this. So I just chose this one and made it look like her.
Where did you get all the different materials from? Did you collect a lot of them yourself?
I did. It was painstakingly hard. All these materials are from the property, actually. There's a great gentleman by the name of Phil who actually helped me. He took me to the sources and actually showed me where they were. I think it's on Null Drive or somewhere. I don't remember the name. It's right just below BB Hall. There's like a plantation area there, so I had to go there and cut. And it was a lot of work.
How did you get the grass
Hmm?
How did you get the grass to stay there?
Oh, my shoes. Yeah. Well, I sprayed the glue on there, and then, well, this was probably, I don't know. I sat up the other morning until probably like almost 3 o'clock. I went down to the garden and I picked some hemlocks, like branches of them, and then I came home and stripped them off. Like all the little tiny hemlock leaves, I actually stripped them off into a bag. So I went to bed like 3 o'clock. Then I woke up the next day and I sprayed the glue on, and then just sprinkle the hemlock leaves over, and then just put some cones along the top.
Any more questions?
Where's the S?
Oh, the S? Yeah. Well, it's supposed to be a brooch because the queen always wear a brooch. So, but I just put mine because it's S for me, Sheila.
What did you make the S out of?
Oh, it's hemlock cones, the same things that are on my shoes. Yeah.
Well, another round of applause for Sheila.
They get a better smell. Oh, it's wonderful. Right now, just wonderful. They're so cool. Let me know where I can purchase the item. Can't wait.
This has been a production of Cornell University, on the web at cornell.edu.